ഞങ്ങൾ സഹോദരങ്ങൾ 5 പേരാണ്. മൂത്തത് തങ്കച്ചായൻ, അമ്മ വർഗീസ്. ഞാൻ ജനിക്കുന്നതിന് 2 വർഷം മുമ്പ് സിംഗപ്പൂരിൽ പോയി. തങ്കച്ചായന് ആദ്യ ഭാര്യ അമ്മൻ ശോശമ്മ, ചേർത്തി. തങ്കച്ചായന് 5 മക്കളാണ്. മൂത്തത് ആലീസ്, രണ്ടാമത് റോയി, മൂന്നാമത് ഷെറി, 4 ജോജി, 5ാമത് സുശീല. തങ്കച്ചായൻ്റെ മൂത്ത മകള് ആലീസ്.
I am Alice, Tangchayan's eldest daughter. My husband is Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Varghese, otherwise Tangachan. We have 2 sons. Eldest is Vinay. The second one is Nitin. Vinay's wife is Suja. They have 2 children, Timothy and Tia.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Varghese. Otherwise, at home I am known as Tangachan. But my wife's family, they call me Tommy, because my father-in-law's name happened to be also Tangachan. So they all call me, all these young people call me Tommy Chai. I belong to Gallupara, the same place where my wife's family belonged to. Our family name is Thaiparampil, Thaiparampil is the name. My father, in fact, the N is the initial. My father's name was N.C. Varghese. We all lived mostly in Nilgiris, where my father was employed in tea estate. After my studies, I joined the Indian Army and served there for 31 years as officer, and retired in 1995. And we live in Bangalore at the moment with our children. My elder son lives next to us with his family, and my younger son, he is at Detroit in the USA. And that's all what I can remember at the moment to say. Thank you very much.
തങ്കച്ചിൻ്റെ പിള്ളേരിൽ ആണി മൂത്താണ് ഞാൻ. എൻ്റെ പേര് ഒഫീഷ്യലി ഏബ്രഹാം മാരറ്റാണ്. തൈപ്പറമ്പിലെ 3ാമത്തെ ജനറേഷനിലെ ഏബ്രഹാമാണ് ഞാൻ. വീട്ടിൽ വിളിക്കുന്നത് റോയ് എന്നാണ്. എൻ്റെ ഭാര്യയുടെ പേര്, now speak in English. My wife's name is Sandra, and her family comes from Vallangulam, Varghese family. And we've got 3 children. And the oldest son is George Jeevan. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2011. The second son is Thomas Navin, and he's married. His wife's name is Pip. They got married in September last year. And the youngest is the next generation, Abraham Marett, or Abraham Vijay Marett. So we live in Australia, and my wife is a doctor, so I'm normally called as the doctor's husband. And my brothers are Sherry, his wife Usha, and their daughter is Shoshana. And they are also in Australia. And the youngest brother, Georgie, he's got a double name, Varghese Marett. His wife's name is Tangam, and their children are Larissa and Sonia, and they live in the United States. Oh, by the way, we live in Australia too, we live in Sydney. I also want to introduce my uncle, Mr. M.A. Joseph. I have a close relationship with Papan, because he was in Singapore with my father, and he and Kochima looked after me when I was a kid, after my mother passed away in 1963. And they have 3 children, Sumu, Sajini and Nabu. Sajini is married to Mohan and is in Kuala Lumpur. Sumu is married to also Mohan. They are in Sydney and they got a son, Pranay. They live not far from where we live in Sydney. And the youngest is Nibu. Nibu's wife is Manju. And they've got a daughter, Miriam, and they live in Singapore. Unfortunately, they could not be here, so since I'm the Ani Mutha, I thought I'd better introduce them. Clearly, when I got married to this lady sitting next to me, I was not a qualified accountant. And I got a lot of grief from a lot of people. But fortunately, I did get qualified.
Only after you got married?
Only after I got married. As you can see, she's in charge. And over the last few years, I've spent lots of time around the world. I worked for an engineering company in the last 26 years. I was around the world, including 3 years in the UK and last 1 year in Delhi. But I'm now fully retired. I'm now, as my wife calls it, a kept man. My full-time job now, I work 3 days a week, practicing my golf to play on Saturday. So that's what I do for a living now, and I love it.
I don't think you make a living from it, though.
I do. You ask my colleagues who play golf with me. I also want to talk a little bit about what my father did in Singapore and also Papanendu. We call him Papanendu because he didn't want to be called Papan, because everybody was called uncle in Singapore, so we call him Papanendu, which means the same thing. My father worked for a shipping company for about 40 years, Harrison's and Crossfield. He was in the shipping area. He was really, when ships came to town, primarily Russian and European ships, he used to go out and see the captain and provide the provisions. In due course, he became in charge of all claims. After he finished his Chartered Institute Secretaries, he became the claims manager for Harrison's and Crossfields, which became Baba Blue Sea. My uncle and wife, they were both teachers. Strangely, they were teaching together in Puducherry. I don't know who saw who first, but they ended up married, and they were both teachers in Singapore. And my uncle was a teacher at St. Andrew's School, and my auntie was a teacher at St. Margaret's. Interestingly, although nobody in our family played sport, my uncle was the coach for the hockey team in St. Andrew's School. I never knew he played hockey, and I still don't believe he played hockey, but he was the coach of the hockey team of St. Andrew's. And after my mother passed away in '63, two of the siblings went to India, three went to India, and my brother Sherry and I ended up in Singapore. We stayed in my uncle's house in Kochima. Clearly, we were not the most exemplary kids in the sense. Apparently, my brother was pretty bad and I was good, but we were always in trouble. So Kochima did us a big favor. Kochima taught me how to play cards. And I'm ever so grateful to Kochima for teaching me how to play 56. Because it stood me in such good stead when I went to college in Toronto.
It helped to pay his school fees.
Not 56, but the rummy which I learned, that was useful. But 56, Kochima taught me that, and I still play the game, and she's the brains behind it. And during vacation, we would spend time in Kalupara. So I know a little bit about Kalupara and our family connections in that area. And across the river, I think it's the Manimala, there was the Marett Kudumam and Mr. M.M. Mathai, who was the MLA at that time. And I had a little bit of a connection to them because they spoke English, and clearly I didn't grow up in Kerala, and their children, Shahji, Joes, we interacted a bit more because of the language. And next to them was also my mother's side of the family, the Alagapur family. So I used to go up and down regularly. One of the episodes I remember in Kalupara, my grandfather was quite a strict person, very conservative as they were at that generation. One day he caught me and Kunjarachan from Varghese playing cards. It's the cards that my auntie taught me, so it must have been a good thing. Appachan caught us playing with the workers, and boy was he angry. Because my mother had passed away and I came to overseas, he only gave me a yearful. But my poor cousin, Kunjarachan, got a thrashing. So that's a memory I have of Appachan. Appachan, like me, suffered from asthma. So there was that common bond. But one of the other things I learned from Appachan is not a single item would he waste. And I still keep that in mind these days when I do things. Like, for example, the coconut tree, I saw every part of the coconut tree, whether it's the husk or whether it's the shell or the branches, they were all always reused in some form or the other. So I spent a lot of time in that 3 years in school and 3 years in university in Trivandrum, at Kalupar and other places. So I did get to know a lot more people. Like MMFA's one side, Appachan, and then there's Rajan Marett, who was on the other side, the Puducherry side. And he ended up marrying one of my cousins, so there was a common bond there too. So I knew a few more people around India because of the time I spent here. The objective of my father was I should have ended up like a priest, like my uncle here. But I think the church and God had better ideas that the church deserved better, so I did end up as an accountant. But I learned Malayalam, and my uncle here did teach me, Bachan Baba did teach me some Syriac, and while he was studying in the seminary.
My name is Sushila. I'm more comfortable in English, so I will say it in English. I am M.A. Varghese's youngest daughter. I was born in Singapore, but after Mummy died in 1963, in 1964, I moved to Kelapara and lived with Appachan and Ammachi and my Avarangutti uncle, who was my everything. And there are stories of how he would come back late from work, from college, and I would have fallen asleep, and then I would say, Avarangutti uncle manakunu, because he would have come back, hot and bothered after a whole day out, and I knew what his smell was, and I knew he was home by his smell. And there is a bond that I have with my father's youngest brother, who was a father and everything for me from the age of 4 to 6. Papa married Mum in 1966. At which time Ammachi told me, now you have a new mother and you must love her and always be respectful of her. And she put her hand in mine, and from that day onwards Mum was my mother, and we moved to Singapore in 1967. My husband is Jokuti. He will do the rest of the talking.
എൻ്റെ പേര് ജോക്കുട്ടി എന്നാണ്. ഞാൻ സുശീല കല്യാണം കഴിച്ചത് 1979. അന്ന് ഞാനൊരു പത്രക്കാരനായി ജീവിക്കുക. കല്യാണം കഴിച്ചതിന് ശേഷം പിന്നെ ഞങ്ങൾ രണ്ടുപേരും കൂടെ സിംഗപ്പൂരിൽ പോയി. അവിടെ പിന്നെ ജോലി തേടി, അവിടെ ജോലി ചെയ്ത്, അവിടെ ജീവിച്ച് 1984 ഞങ്ങൾക്കൊരു മകൻ ഉണ്ടായി. എൻ്റെ പേര് ആശിഷ്. ആ കുഞ്ഞ് 1ാം ക്ലാസ്സിൽ ചേരാറായ സമയമായപ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾ രണ്ടുപേരും കൂടെ തിരിച്ച് ഇന്ത്യയിലേക്ക് പോരാമെന്ന് വെച്ച് അങ്ങനെ 1990 ഞങ്ങൾ ബാംഗ്ലൂരിൽ വന്ന് താമസമായി. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ബാംഗ്ലൂരുകാരായി മാറി. ഞങ്ങളുടെ മകൻ പഠിച്ച് തീർന്നു, വക്കീലായിട്ട് ഇംഗ്ലണ്ടിലേക്ക് കുടിയേറി. ഞങ്ങൾ രണ്ടുപേരും ഇവിടെ തുടർന്ന് താമസിച്ചു. ഞാൻ പത്രക്കാരനായിട്ട് 2006 റിട്ടയർ ചെയ്തു. അതിനുശേഷം പിന്നെ കുറേ വർഷം കൂടെ ജേർണലിസം പഠിപ്പിച്ചു.